Hello and welcome to my little bookish corner of the internet. My name's Harriet. Today I'm going to be doing my spoiler-filled review for A Feast for Crows by George R.R. Martin. This is book 4 in the A Song of Ice and Fire series, which is a fantasy series. But for me it's actually the 5th book because the 3rd one was split into 2 parts. This is one heck of a book. It's very big. It did take me a little while to read. I think it was about 2 weeks, which is actually pretty good. I'm quite proud of myself for that. Yeah, there are definitely going to be spoilers for this, so if you don't want to know what happens in this series, then click off now. If you do want to know but you need a refresher of the previous books, then I have got all of the videos linked down below for you to check out for the previous books and all my reviews for them. But let's get started. Now, to start off with, I always think it's good to go back to the book beforehand. So that was A Storm of Swords, Blood and Gold, and this is like the 2nd book of the 3rd book, if that makes sense. So it's supposed to be one big book, but it was just huge. So in the UK they split it into 2 parts. I do again have a review of this, so you can go and watch that if you like, but as a brief recap, and I have had to make notes because there's no way I'd remember everything, there are many deaths that happen in this. George R.R. Martin was not afraid to kill off some of my favourite characters, so this book does contain both the Red Wedding and the Purple Wedding. So in the Red Wedding, Lady Catelyn and Robb Stark both die at the hand of the Freys, and the Lannisters are kind of involved as well. So they die, and then the Purple Wedding, that is when Joffrey dies, and everyone assumes that it's Tyrion that poisoned him and his wife Sansa Stark, but we actually find out that it wasn't them at all. We have a kind of idea who it might be, but also everyone lies, so I don't know if they are actually the killer or not. So that will be interesting if we ever find that out and it's like set in stone, because people still believe that it is Tyrion. So that happens, and I did just tell you that Lady Catelyn died, but she's actually reanimated at the end of it. It seems by the Lord of Light. Tyrion, who was accused of killing Joffrey, he actually ends up killing his father, and he ends up killing the woman that he was in love with called Shay, because she was sleeping with his father and also just generally being very untrustworthy. So he kills her and then he runs away, and we don't see him again in the next book. We've also got Arya Stark, and she was travelling with the Hound, but now she has left him for dead, and she's going to try and find somewhere where she can stay and figure out how her life is going to go. And then we've got Jon Snow, who's just been made Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. So he's now in charge of the Wall, basically, and all the people that are there. And then we've also got Littlefinger, who's looking after Sansa. He ends up kissing her, which is really gross. And also he kills his wife, Lady Lysa. So there's a lot of death in this. As I say, if you want to hear more about my thoughts, then you can watch the review, but that's like a brief recap of where all our characters are at the end of this one. And then we get onto this big beast of a book. So it, I think, might be the longest if you're thinking about the versions that I have. Obviously, the 3rd book, if it wasn't split into 2 parts, that would be bigger than this. But this was just a lot of reading. I didn't hate it, don't get me wrong. I'm going to talk about my thoughts after I kind of talk about the plot a little bit, but it just did feel very long. There were points where I thought, oh god, I don't know if I can finish this in a month, because it felt like it was going on for a really long time. But at the same time, there's quite a lot that happens in this, so let's talk about that. Now, the first thing to note is that we're not really following any of the main characters, so you don't really get to see much of Jon Snow, and you don't get to see anything of Daenerys at all. But we do get to see different perspectives of people all over the world that this is set in, from different places. For example, Dawn, which we haven't really seen before, and also the Iron Islands, which was quite interesting. So you see a lot more landscapes. And we are very heavily focused in on Jaime and Cersei's relationship as well, which we haven't seen before. Now, Jaime and Cersei have had a kind of falling out. I think Jaime has realised how manipulative Cersei can be. And I think he's sort of had enough of it, is how it feels in this book. And he's had a lot of stuff going on, you know, he had his hand chopped off, so he's having to learn how to be a knight without his sword hand, so he's having to use his other hand and learn how to use that. Whereas Cersei is just all about revenge for her son, because Joffrey got murdered, and she hasn't been able to capture Tyrion, and she's very heavily focused on that. That's all she's kind of concentrating on. But there's other stuff happening as well. So there are these people, this kind of collection of people called the Sparrows, and they're very focused on the 7, so the 7 gods that are worshipped in King's Landing and all across Westeros. And they're kind of trying to take over, it seems. That's kind of in the background of this entire book the whole time, is all of these people feeling like they want to rise up and take over big houses and kind of punish them for their sins, sort of thing. So you've got all of that tension going on, and then you've got tension on the side of the Greyjoys over in the Iron Islands because no one is sitting on the throne at the moment. And then one of the men that has been gone for years and years, he shouldn't really sit on the throne, but he basically takes it over. So we are following Theon's sister as she tries to claim the Iron Throne because in her eyes, she is the rightful heir. It's her father that died. And Theon is presumed dead as well, so she's kind of next in line, but she's also a woman. So she's having a lot of pushback from that. And then on the complete opposite side of the world, we've got Arya, and she's actually been taken in by people that worship the many-faced god. And that's a very interesting kind of religion and side of the magic system that we've not really seen before. So her story's been really interesting as well. And it does actually intertwine with other characters, which is super cool. So Sam visited where Arya was because he's trying to get to the Citadel to basically get more people for the Night's Watch on the wall because the Whites are coming. There's a lot of tension with winter coming, and that's when the Whites come as well. And they're just this really violent, kind of dark, magical race. And they want to take over everything and kill all humans. But while Sam is travelling, he is travelling with Gilly and he breaks his vows, so they end up sleeping with each other. And it was actually quite cute. It was quite nice to read, but also it was quite graphic, so I don't know if nice to read would be the way to put it. But it did happen, and I was quite happy when it did happen, because Sam deserves happiness. He's such a nice lad. And then also in the background of all of this, we've got this mystical figure that no one really knows about called Lady Stoneheart. And it actually turns out that that is the reanimated version of Catelyn, and she's basically wreaking havoc around the Riverlands and around Winterfell and trying to get all of the people that were involved in the Red Wedding and torture and kill them. She seems to be hanging them all. That's like her murder of choice, I suppose, her punishment of choice. And she actually runs into Brienne, and where we're left with Brienne, she's with Podrick Payne and they both get hanged by Catelyn Stark, and I don't know if they're alive or not because it was just left and I haven't heard anything about it. So that was a big cliffhanger for me. I don't know if she's going to be alive because all of the stuff in here is really quite different to the series now. So I don't know where it's going to go, and I found that really interesting and really fun. So those are all of the main plot points that I can really remember and think of. So there seems to be a lot happening, but at the same time there is a lot of kind of political intrigue that is mainly just talking. There's some tension, of course, which I did enjoy, but there are lots of long debates as well, lots and lots of dialogue. And I don't mind that in any way, shape or form, but it just feels a little bit different and a little bit slower to the previous books. But it did just mean that I took my time with it, I spent a bit longer with it, and we got to know the characters a little bit more as well. I think just overall, I did really enjoy reading both Jaime and Cersei's chapters, particularly when they were communicating with each other, because I found it very interesting to see it from both of their perspectives and how they view each other. And Cersei, she really is a nasty piece of work. She is such a force, and she's always scheming. She's always got something going on in the background. You can never trust what she says, and I think her character is just brilliantly written. She has been since the very start, and now she's got to deal with these sparrows that have essentially taken her in and said that she needs to atone for her sins. So that's where she's left, and I'm very nervous but also excited to see what happens to her and how she's going to get out of this one. Obviously I've seen the series, but it might be different in the books. I have no idea. But while I did enjoy reading from Jaime and Cersei's perspective, I did find some of the other characters to be a little bit boring in a way. I didn't really enjoy reading them as much as I would have if there was Jon and Daenerys in this, because I really do like their characters. And I did really enjoy Sansa's chapters as well. I feel like she's a character that I've really grown to love. So yeah, overall, I think that was really good character development. I wish there were different characters in here that we could have followed, but it's made me want to read the next book a lot faster. And I don't know if that was the intent, or if George R.R. Martin just had so many ideas he wanted to put them into this book and then put other characters into the other book. That's what he said that he was doing, but you can never tell. But yeah, it was just a little bit slower. It wasn't my favourite out of all of the books in the series so far, but I did really like it and I would still recommend it, absolutely. I think it is worth being part of the series, and it builds up for a lot of tension and it does help to move the plot along as well. So overall, I would give this 4-star rating, not quite a 5-star this time. It's the first book in the series that I can't quite give that to. I feel like if I were to reread them, I feel like I might skip out on this one. It wasn't really bad, don't get me wrong, it's just so long. It took such a long time to read. But yeah, that is my review for A Feast for Crows. Let me know if you've read this series before, if you've read any of the books, if you've read all of the books, and definitely let me know what you thought of them. But that is it from me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!